All right, get ready to dive deep into Middle-earth.
Ooh, sounds exciting. But are we talking about the usual battles and quests?
Not today. We're going for something a little different, those cozy Middle-earth stories.
Cozy, huh? I like it.
Yeah, think less about the clashing swords and more about, well, maybe a hobbit trying to haggle with the mischievous forest spirit. We're talking about the stories that often get overshadowed by those epic battles and famous quests.
I see, the kind of tales that make you want to curl up by a fire with a good book and a mug of something warm.
Exactly. And the sources for this deep dive, well, we've got a fantastic mix of YouTube retellings. They really bring these lesser-known stories to life.
So we're talking about those corners of Middle-earth that Tolkien himself might have only hinted at. Those everyday folks living their lives outside the shadow of Mordor.
You got it. It's like peeking behind the curtain, getting a glimpse into what life was like for those who didn't necessarily wield swords or wear mithril.
Absolutely. And often these stories are surprisingly revealing. They might seem simple on the surface, but they offer glimpses into Middle-earth's culture, its values, even its darker sides.
Yeah, it's fascinating how much depth there is to these tales, even the ones that start with a hobbit accidentally trading his soul for a pair of shoes.
Wait, what? A soul for shoes?
Oh yeah, you've got to hear this one. It's about a hobbit cobbler named Fennel Stitchberry. He makes a deal with a forest spirit named Vorax. Think of Vorax as one of those mischievous, trickster-like figures you often find in folklore.
I'm starting to see where this is going. Not your average cobbler meets spirit story, I bet.
Definitely not. Fennel thinks he's getting a sweet deal, trading an old shoe for a boost in his shoemaking business. But, well, he might have missed a little detail in the fine print.
He didn't happen to trade, an actual soul for those shoes, did he?
Well, let's just say Fennel's actions have some, shall we say, hilariously outsized consequences. And it leads to a fashion craze of giant shoes sweeping the Shire. Who knew hobbits were so into oversized footwear?
Oh my, it's so perfectly hobbit-like. Their biggest concern is comfortable footwear. It's charming, but I bet there were a few raised eyebrows at those gatherings.
I can only imagine the gossip. But on a more serious note, this tale highlights how deeply hobbits value tradition and conformity. Those giant shoes must cause quite the stir.
Indeed. Now, let's contrast that with the story of Tol and Adelar, these adventurous hobbits who find themselves wandering into the Barrow Downs. Those ancient burial grounds, not exactly known for their cheerful atmosphere.
You're telling me. And then they run into the Emerald Elf, this enchanting figure who lures travelers with his special heather ale. It's giving me some fairy tale gone wrong vibes.
Right. The Emerald Elf is a classic example of those figures in folklore who embody both beauty and danger. Adelard, well, he falls for the charm. But Tol, armed with nothing but his wits and a four-leaf clover, manages to resist.
Okay, first of all, how do hobbits keep stumbling upon these magical beings? Are they just drawn to trouble? But seriously, this story, unlike Fennel's shoe fiasco, emphasizes courage in the face of enchantment.
It's a good reminder that even ordinary hobbits can be heroes, especially when they've got a lucky clover.
Absolutely. And then there's that heartwarming tale of the hobbit maiden who rescues a prince. Now, this is a classic fairy tale motif woven into Tolkien's world.
Ah, yes, the prince in distress. But with a hobbit maiden as the rescuer, I'm intrigued.
Right. You'd think it would be all about romance, but it's actually about this hobbit maiden's incredible bravery and her kindness. She finds this, well, frog trapped in a well and doesn't hesitate to help. Talk about compassion.
And in doing so, she not only breaks the spell, but discovers that this frog is actually a prince from Rivendell. What a twist. The seemingly simple tale links the Shire with those magical elven realms.
It shows how interconnected Tolkien's world is, doesn't it? Even a simple act of kindness can bridge the gap between the humble Shire and the realm of elves.
Exactly. Speaking of connections, how about we shift our focus to Gondor, a kingdom with a history as long and winding as, well, the Anduin River itself.
Oh, Gondor. Its legacy is a fascinating blend of human achievement and the fragility of power. And it all starts with those Númenórean exiles, those who fled the downfall of their island kingdom.
They brought with them the White Tree, a poignant symbol of their lost homeland and their enduring hope. And they established Gondor on the shores of Middle-earth, shaping its destiny for generations to come.
We're talking about figures like Meneldil, the first sole king after the death of his father, Anarion. He focused on consolidating Gondor's power and expanding its influence, didn't he?
He did. It was a time of growth and prosperity, a testament to Meneldil's leadership. But it's also a reminder that peace can sometimes be a fragile thing, the seeds of future conflict often sown even in times of apparent tranquility.
And then there's Erner, the last king of Gondor. His story is one of those that's just shrouded in mystery and tragedy.
He rode out to face the Witch King in single combat, a gesture of defiance, but perhaps also a touch of recklessness, and he was never seen again.
Just gone. vanished without a trace. The line of kings broken, the throne left empty. It's a reminder that even the most powerful kingdoms can be vulnerable to the whims of fate, to those forces of darkness that never truly sleep.
The people of Gondor, though, they are nothing if not resilient. They faced countless hardships, but they held on to hope.
Even without their king, they continued to defend their land, build their cities, and keep the flame of Gondor burning bright. It's honestly inspiring, that unwavering spirit.
It's a testament to the human spirit, wouldn't you say? The ability to endure even in the face of unimaginable loss and hardship. It's a reminder that hope can flicker even in the darkest of times.
Okay, we've talked about hobbits and men. Now it's time to turn our attention to those ever-elusive, ever-fascinating elves.
Ah, the elves. Their stories often feel like whispers from a distant past, echoes of an age when Middle-earth was younger and magic was more readily felt in the air.
Their history is one of both wonder and sorrow, filled with migrations, incredible feats of craftsmanship, and the creation of those breathtaking realms.
Realms like Doriath, Gondolin, Nargothrond, each one a testament to elven skill and their profound connection to nature. But tragically, these realms ultimately fell during the War of the Jewels.
It's hard to imagine those beautiful elven cities crumbling before the might of Morgoth. For those who might not know, Morgoth was like Sauron's predecessor, the original Dark Lord.
That's a good way to put it. And the fall of these realms serves as a stark reminder that even the most magnificent creations can be destroyed. But the elves, they don't give up. They establish new homes like Lindon and Eregion.
They carried their knowledge and traditions into the Second Age, adapting and enduring even as the world around them shifted.
And Eregion, well, that's where the story takes a somewhat darker turn, doesn't it? It's where the Rings of Power were forged and Sauron, disguised as Anatar, the Lord of Gifts, tricked the elves.
Oh, talk about a betrayal. They thought they could use the rings for good, to heal and create, but they underestimated Sauron's cunning. Classic case of too much trust, perhaps.
Perhaps. But let's not forget, the elves are also capable of incredible wisdom. Think of Galadriel in Lothlorien, or Elrond in Rivendell. They understood the threat Sauron posed and dedicated themselves to resisting his influence.
And we can't forget about the last alliance of elves and men, that desperate but ultimately victorious struggle against Sauron. Elrond, Gil-galad, Isildur, so many legendary heroes fought side by side.
It's a powerful reminder that even the most ancient of adversaries can find common ground when facing a greater threat. And it shows the importance of unity in the face of overwhelming odds.
Okay, we've covered hobbits, men, and elves. I think it's time we address the orcs in the room, so to speak. What do these tales tell us about their origins? Are they mindless monsters, or is there more to them?
Ah, the orcs. Creatures of shadow, bound to the will of Morgoth and later Sauron. It's a question that has fascinated Tolkien scholars for ages. Were they corrupted elves, or were they something else entirely, created from the very essence of darkness? The debate continues.
Regardless of their origins, they're undoubtedly a force to be reckoned with. From the sacking of the Shire to those epic battles against the Free Peoples, their presence is felt throughout Middle-earth's history.
But that raises the question of free will, doesn't it? Do orcs have any agency? Or are they merely puppets dancing to the tune of their dark masters? It's a complex question with no easy answers.
It adds a layer of moral complexity to their story. If they're inherently evil, are they truly responsible for their actions? Or are they, in some sense, victims of their own creation? It's something to ponder.
And Tolkien himself grappled with this very question. It's a testament to the depth of his world building, how even those who seem like straightforward villains have layers of complexity.
Speaking of complex figures, we can't forget Gandalf the Grey. He pops up in so many of these tales, always at those crucial moments.
Gandalf, the enigmatic wizard who seems to have a hand in nearly every major event. He's more than just a wise old man with a staff, though.
Oh, absolutely. He's a Maya, a being of immense power sent to Middle-earth to guide and aid the Free Peoples in their fight against Sauron. A sort of secret agent for the good guys, you could say.
He possesses a deep understanding of Middle-earth's history and an unwavering commitment to opposing the forces of darkness. He might appear unassuming, but his wisdom and actions shape the course of events in profound ways.
It makes you wonder what other secrets lie beneath that pointy hat of his, doesn't it? But, before we get too lost in Gandalf's mysteries, I think we need to return to the Shire. It's a haven of peace, a place that seems to endure no matter what darkness falls upon the world.
The Shire. It's a comforting thought, isn't it? That amidst the turmoil and conflict, there's still a place where life goes on, where simple pleasures are cherished.
And we can't forget the restoration of the Shire after the Scouring. It's a powerful story of hope and renewal. Remember, when Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin return home, they find their beloved land in disarray.
It's a heartbreaking moment. But it also showcases the incredible resilience of the hobbits, their determination to rebuild and restore what was lost.
And Samwise Gamgee, that unsung hero, he plays a vital role in that restoration. He plants the Malorn tree, a gift from Galadriel, bringing a touch of elven magic to the Shire. But he also focuses on tending to the land, on healing the wounds inflicted by Saruman's ruffians.
And ultimately, the Shire endures. Protected by King Elisar, it remains a beacon of peace, seemingly untouched by the changing world beyond its borders. A reminder that amidst the grand battles and epic struggles, simple joys can still be found and cherished.
It's a comforting thought that even in a world touched by darkness, there are still places where peace and simplicity endure. It gives me hope knowing that those havens exist even in the face of adversity.
As it should. These stories, they might seem like escapism, but I think they offer something more profound. They remind us that even in the darkest of times, there's always hope. There's always something worth fighting for, something worth preserving, and that's a message worth holding on to. But I believe it's time for us to take a short break. We've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive.
We have, but there's so much more to explore. In the next part, we'll delve even deeper into these hidden meanings, these subtle connections that weave together this tapestry of Middle-earth's lesser-known tales. But until then, I'm curious, what stood out to you so far? What surprised you or challenged your assumptions about Tolkien's world?
Welcome back to our journey through these cozy tales, those often overlooked stories from Middle-earth. And after that last discussion, I've been thinking...
Me too. There's just so much to unpack, right? Like, where do we even begin?
Well, one thing that keeps coming back to me is this idea of resilience.
Resilience, yeah. We've seen it everywhere, haven't we?
From the Hobbits of the Shire to those brave souls in Gondor, even in the orcs, in their own way. It's almost like a thread that runs through all these stories, wouldn't you say?
Totally. It's this ability to bounce back, to face hardship, and not just survive, but adapt and grow stronger. Like, take the Shire.
Yeah.
It's honestly incredible that it managed to pull through after the whole mess with Saruman and his ruffians.
It really is remarkable. But remember, it wasn't just luck. Aragorn, now King Elisar, he played a part in that. He made sure to protect the Shire, declaring its borders as a kind of sanctuary.
Right. It's like he knew that the hobbits, with their love of the land and their simple way of life, they represented something precious that needed safekeeping.
And the hobbits themselves, they were instrumental in rebuilding their home. Samwise Gamgee, he was the heart and soul of that restoration, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. Sam is the ultimate example of quiet heroism. He didn't need a sword or magic to make a difference.
He just needed a good shovel and a love for his land. He planted the melon tree, a gift from Galadriel, bringing a bit of that elven magic to the Shire. But he also focused on those everyday tasks, tending the gardens, rebuilding what was lost.
It's that dedication to the simple things, the everyday acts of care that really make a difference, don't they?
They do. It's a reminder that heroism comes in many forms and that we don't always need grand gestures to make a real impact.
And speaking of resilience and renewal, we can't forget the elves. Their story didn't end with the fall of those ancient realms.
Not at all. They might mourn those lost homes, but they never give up. They adapt, they create new havens. Look at Lindon, that refuge on the western shores of Middle-earth. It became a place of remembrance, a link to their past.
And then there's Rivendell, Elrond's hidden realm, tucked away in those misty mountains. It's a place of knowledge where they preserve their lore and traditions.
And Lothlorien, Galadriel's realm. It's a place that feels almost timeless, shrouded in beauty and enchantment.
It's like each of these realms reflects a different facet of elven culture, right? Lindon with its connection to the past, Rivendell with its focus on wisdom, and Lothlorien with its ethereal beauty.
Exactly. There are different ways of coping with loss, of preserving what's precious in a world that's constantly changing. And they remind us that even though elves are often seen as otherworldly and distant, they're still very much a part of Middle-earth.
They play a vital role in the fate of this world, don't they? Their wisdom, their craftsmanship, it all helps shape the course of events.
It does. Now, we spent a lot of time talking about hobbits and elves, but I think we need to circle back to the orcs.
Yeah, the orcs. We touched on their origins, but do these cozy stories give us any more insight into their culture, their motivations?
Well, on the surface, they might seem to reinforce that image of orcs as purely evil, driven by destruction. And there are certainly plenty of examples of that.
I mean, the sacking of the Shire, their role in Sauron's armies, it's hard to argue that they're a peaceful bunch.
True. But remember, Tolkien wrestled with the idea of their free will. Were they truly evil by nature, or were they victims of circumstance, corrupted by Morgoth's will?
That does add another layer to their story, doesn't it? It makes you wonder if things could have been different for them. Like, if they'd been given a choice, would they have taken a different path?
It's a difficult question to answer, but I think it's important to acknowledge that even if they were victims in some way, they're still capable of great cruelty.
So it's not about excusing their actions,
Right.
but about recognizing the complexity of their situation.
Exactly. And it's a reminder that the lines between good and evil aren't always clear-cut. that even those who've been wronged can become perpetrators of harm.
It's a tough truth, but one that Tolkien doesn't shy away from in his work.
And it makes these stories all the more thought-provoking, wouldn't you say? They force us to grapple with those uncomfortable questions about the nature of evil, the consequences of our choices.
And the possibility of redemption. Which, speaking of, brings us back to Gandalf.
Ah, Gandalf. He seems to be everywhere, doesn't he? Popping up at those crucial moments, offering guidance, nudging things in the right direction.
It's like he's always one step ahead, isn't it? He understands the bigger picture, the way all these events connect.
He does. He embodies both wisdom and action. He doesn't just sit back and observe. He knows when to intervene, to take a stand against the darkness.
He's a reminder that we can't just be passive observers. We have a responsibility to act, to stand up for what's right.
And those actions, even small ones, can have a ripple effect, can change the course of things. It's inspiring, isn't it?
It is. It makes you realize that we all have a role to play, even if it doesn't seem like much in the grand scheme of things.
And that even in the face of overwhelming darkness, there's always hope, always a reason to keep fighting for what we believe in.
And that's what I love about these cozy tales. They remind us that even in a world filled with magic and dragons, it's those everyday acts of courage and kindness that truly matter.
That even when things seem bleak, there's still beauty to be found, still reasons to smile, still reasons to hope. And those things, they're worth fighting for.
They are. And as we head into the final part of our deep dives, I want to encourage everyone listening to keep that in mind. What lessons can we take from these stories, from those hobbits and elves, and even those orcs? How can we apply that wisdom to our own lives? It's something to think about. You know, after spending all this time with these Middle-earth stories, I'm struck by how much they focus on the little things, you know?
Yeah, I see what you mean. The everyday stuff that usually gets overshadowed by those big, epic events.
Right, exactly. Like, think about Fennel Stitchberry, the Hobbit cobbler. Remember him? The guy who traded his soul for shoes.
Oh, yeah, poor Fennel. He wasn't exactly the sharpest tool in the shed. But, you know, his story, it's more than just a funny mishap. It shows us how life in the Shire just keeps going.
It does, doesn't it? Even with the occasional giant shoe incident, they adapt, they find ways to make things work.
Exactly. And that's what I find so fascinating about these cozy tales. They're like a window into the lives of those everyday folks, the ones who aren't fighting dragons or saving the world.
It's a good reminder that even in a world with magic and monsters, it's those ordinary acts of courage and kindness that really shape things.
Absolutely. We see it in the hobbits tending their gardens, the elves creating their beautiful crafts, even the men rebuilding Gondor. It's those everyday efforts, those little bits of resilience that really keep things going.
You know, it's funny, isn't it? In a world like Tolkien's, you'd think the focus would be on those big dramatic moments. But so much of it is about the simple things.
Well, I think that's part of what makes these stories so relatable, so endearing. They remind us that even in the midst of chaos, there's still beauty to be found.
Yeah, there's beauty in those quiet moments, in the way people come together to rebuild and support each other. And those values, they matter no matter what world you're in.
They do. And they're values we could all use a little more of in our own lives, wouldn't you say? Especially these days when everything feels so chaotic and uncertain.
I agree. These stories, they're like a breath of fresh air. A reminder that there's still good in the world, still reasons to hope. And even though we might not be facing down orcs or balrogs,
there are still battles to be fought, right? Challenges to overcome.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But we can face them with the same spirit of resilience and compassion that we see in these cozy tales. And knowing that, well, it gives me hope. It makes me want to go out and make the world a little bit brighter, even if it's just in my own small way.
Me too. And I think that's a beautiful sentiment to end on. These stories, they remind us that even in a world full of darkness, there's always light to be found. And that's a message worth cherishing.
It is. So to everyone listening, as we say goodbye to the Shire, to Gondor, to all those incredible realms we've visited today, I hope you take that message with you. Keep seeking out those stories, those hidden gems that remind you of the good in the world and the power we all have to make a difference. And that's it for our deep dive. Until next time, may your days be filled with a little bit of Middle-earth magic.